We are back for another episode of More Than a Title. I'm your host, Jared Thomas, as usual. And we have a bonus Cinco de Mayo edition with a special guest. To give you some context before I make this introduction, but this brother here I met at SMW, social media marketing world out in San Diego. And he came into the Hootsuite booth, man, and his energy was just infectious. And then we end up having a good talk, found out that this brother is actually from New York City, just like myself. We had some really cool stories, but he's a great dude, and I'm so honored to have him here. So let's please welcome Arjun Rai, CEO of Hello Woofy. How are you, brother?
Doing fabulous, as always. Doing great. Hello from Miami Beach today. We're traveling here for the Ty Lopez mastermind, and so that's been super exciting as well. But looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, likewise, brother. It's a pleasure to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time out your day to just come and chat. But as you guys, for anybody who's a first-time listener, this is More Than a Title, and really what the premise of the show is, right? What is the lessons behind the title, right? Because we are all more than a title. So what are the journey lessons? I mean, lessons we learned throughout the journey, and what can we really take and extract from that? Because too many podcasts are the same thing as marketing this and tactics, right? But how do we all level up, and what can we learn from, people like Arjun's journey? So if you want to, man, let's start from the top. Let's go into your journey, and how did you get into the tech space?
Yeah, so I would say I've been inventing, building, doing something weird with inventions and wires and bulbs since I was a 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid, and oftentimes I would drive my parents insane and be like, I want to do this, I want to build that, and Legos helped with that. Getting my mind into engineering. A guy named Mr. Kriskowski got me into carpentry. I still do carpentry till this day. I built probably half the things in my house, or have been modified. What else? I used to be in the library. I used to just learn about Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Donald Trump. Like, how did they make it? I was just absolutely fascinated with their books and all the content there. So started very early, I would say, with that mindset of building something. And then in high school, ended up doing a startup. In college, ended up doing 2 startups. We raised venture capital for one of them. Failed at all of those in some degree, and had some success in some degree. But when it came to Hello Woofy, this is the furthest I've taken a company. If I was just pitching a couple of entrepreneurs and investors earlier, and I was telling them, hey, being humble and vulnerable at the same time. This is the furthest I've taken this company, and we've been through a lot of ups and downs, and we need guidance, we need help to learn, to figure out how to get to the next level. So it's all about showing up, right? I showed up at the SMMW event where we met. Huge shout out to Michael and Emily who run the event and are incredible human beings. It's all about just showing up. Even this event here at Ty Lopez's conference, right? Ty and I have done so many rooms last year, especially on Clubhouse. We co-modded rooms, and now his team reached out to me. I was like, hey, let's do something. Let's chat. And so I was like, okay, spend a few $1,000s to come here, make it worth it, and just go all in. Just go all in.
I love that you're saying love the way you ended, especially the go all in, right? Where did that come from, right? Because I know that you, like you said, you're fascinated by Bill Gates. You had that entrepreneurial mindset, spirit, right? But what made you actually go out there and go get it? And what are some of the lessons you learned with some of those, what are some of the challenges you experienced when you first started?
Yeah, here's the deal with going all in. So I'm very conservative with my financial projections, all that stuff, working with people, I tend to, feel them out a little bit. I tend to be very conservative, especially with a lot of making a lot of mistakes, making a lot of, decisions where you didn't take enough time to think about it or do enough research. It makes you conservative. But in our case, I would say, when I joined Jen Duplessis's mastermind, who is an amazing woman, great entrepreneur. I met her on Clubhouse, and she's done, I think, like $1 billion in lending and mortgage industry. Highly recommend checking out her masterminds. So I did her virtual mastermind during the pandemic. And it came down to investing and spending the money to be around the right entrepreneurs and the right mindsets. And it's all about proximity. Some people say it's the law of proximity. It's also called you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And all of a sudden, I was going to one mastermind, turn into 2 masterminds, because then they asked me to, hey, speak here. In some cases, they won't charge you anything. In some cases, they'll charge you very little just for the namesake. And so we're actually on a 15, 16 city tour now, to
Wow.
not only promote Hello Woofy and our mission to support underdogs and small businesses, but we're also, speaking about community building. We're speaking about how small businesses can survive and thrive. And the only reason it happened is because we spent what I thought was a lot of money in hindsight, but it's really not. It's just pieces of paper, which give rise to other opportunities will be worth millions, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. No guarantees, but a lot more pieces of paper.
Wow, wow, man, and that's amazing, and I love everything that you're doing, brother. I would love to know too, man. Where did the concept of Hello Woofy come from? Where
Yeah.
did that derive from, right? And what was the first steps of building this company?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur, as I mentioned, since I was a teenager, and every single time I was working on something, and when I say we, it's me.
Yeah.
We had to build a community. We had to do it on social. We had to do it on blogging.
Yeah.
We had to do it everywhere, right? And even today, till this day, now you have venues where you can promote your marketing content on, for example, Google Web Stories. Smart speakers, Alexa devices. There are about 500 million devices around the world. You've got newsletters that can be automated. So we're actually doing all of that in one dashboard in one platform. And we realized that you have to do that as a small business owner in order
Yeah.
to compete with other business owners or other bigger companies. And we came
Yeah.
up with the solution using artificial intelligence, using a lot of intelligence to be able to do that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Like for me, so I love stuff like that because I'm in my future life. I feel like I'm going to be a tech entrepreneur, right? I know too much about marketing. I have too much drive. I know that's going to be my thing, right? But what are the first steps of finding the right people to actually develop that tech, right? Like
Yep.
how do you vet that? What does the vetting process look like as an entrepreneur? Because like starting
Yeah.
off early, right? Every dollar counts for sure,
Yeah,
right?
so for me, I would recommend, and this is how we did it, is don't hire people without looking up their credentials and their, if you're on Fiverr or Upwork, look
Yeah.
up their ratings and all of that stuff. It's so we actually had to turn our company around. We raised $250,000. We burned
Mhm.
through it, made wrong decisions on the hiring side. We had to fire people who said they were something and they actually weren't. I had to unfortunately fire my co-founder as well, who we're now friends again. And
Yes.
it came down to 10K in the bank, and I was like, "Hey, investors," and talking to our investors at the time back then, and I was like, "Hey, what do we do?" And they all said, "Shut it down. We'll do the next thing with you." And I thought about it, and I said, "Absolutely no." So I maxed out my credit cards. I maxed 120,000 in credit cards, 50K in cash,
Wow.
and then just a few months ago, I took another 250,000, like 150K in loans out, and we paid most of it back. And yeah, and so I said, okay, I'm going to build it the right way. And so we went on Upwork. We looked for people who had high ratings. We put them through something called HackerRank, which is
Yeah.
basically an SAT kind of like coding, testing site. And we hired the person and the people that had the highest scores, and we've been working with them for years now. We turned the company around, and probably this year we're going to do 1.2 million, 1.5 million. Again, no guarantees, but we're going to do probably around that in revenue. So, boy, was it a turnaround story in and of itself.
That's amazing, man. I love that story, man. And I love that it goes with the mission statement too, as far as being an underdog. Because if that's not an underdog,
Oh yeah,
brother.
boy! If I could tell you, so just a few months before we launched, we were auditioning for a TV show, and the TV
Uh-huh.
show said, "No, go away. You're too early. You're too, you're not gonna make it." And then my dad called me up in the first week of September, saying, "Hey, your mom's been taken to the hospital. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. You need to come
Oh
down to
no.
Princeton." She ended up passing away a few days later, but before
Oh
she
no.
did, the TV show emailed me and said, "Hey, just talk about miracles. We want you on the set. How fast can you be in California?" And I said, "I'll be there as soon as possible." We won the TV show. We raised over $500,000, and we grew 21,000% thereafter.
That is amazing. And first, my condolences. And I love like your spirit, brother. I actually just had a brother on yesterday. His name is Phil Johnson. Check him out. He's like a Jedi. But the whole concept was betting on yourself and your spirit,
Absolutely.
right? Like you have a go get it attitude, and you're not going to stop at anything. And that's what drew me to you, right? Because I feel like I'm the same way, brother. So to hear that is reassuring to say, man, I'm not going to let anything stop me. And that's why I love social, to be honest with you,
Mm.
because it gives the underdogs the opportunity to level the playing field in the market or
Yep.
whatever it is, right?
Yep.
You're a good storyteller. You could be the most known fisherman. You could be the most known salesperson. You could be the most known whatever
Yeah.
you want. And that's going to draw the more product, and it's going to draw the community and all those things. So I love the fact that you did that, built the product for small businesses.
Yeah.
And to work with like companies like Hootsuite and things like that, man, it's just
And,
amazing.
and by the way, along those lines, I want to give a quick, huge shout out to Ryan Holmes, because I reached out to him and said, "Hey, a couple of your customers are asking for an integration with our company. We may be competitive." And he said, "No, let's do a co-creating collaboration, a partnership. And we are the only ones in your app store where we may be competitive in some regard, but we're actually a co-creating opportunity where your customers are using our platform, our customers are using your platform. It's such a
Yeah.
fresh of breath, a fresh air, a breath of fresh air, because it's not a zero sum game. It's not a
Yeah.
zero sum game. If you can imagine, in the early days, if Apple and Microsoft truly had forged a strong relationship, because if you remember, Microsoft was developing products for Apple and vice versa.
Yeah.
That relationship went in a different route over time. Maybe egos were involved, but I think to truly help small businesses, you have to have platforms come together, have to have a co-creating approach. And Ryan, we spoke a few times, and he always said, co-creating is the magic word. And we'd love to do that with all our, other, competitors as well, to co-create with, partner with them, because at the end of the day, we only help the underdogs.
That's it. That's it, man. And I love that story as well, man. And I would love to even touch on like the raising the capital, right? So what are those pitches like, and how do you prepare yourself for that? Because like, man, I'm ready to buy in right now. You got me. You
So
got me going.
raising capital is like dating. I mean, you got to get to know the person. You got to feel them out. So one of the things I'm doing now is there's a new app called Intro. It's
Yep.
by a guy named Rad, and he is totally rad. No pun intended or intended. Shout out to Rad as well. And it turns out you can go on there for a few $100s. You can interview or ask questions or get mentorship from some of the most successful entrepreneurs and investors. So I spoke to the founder of Zillow. I spoke to Kim Perrell, who's a very famous angel investor. I just spoke to Jacqueline earlier today. She's also a very well-known LA-based angel investor and women entrepreneurs. We met. I'm about to speak to the guy who sold Kinko's for 2.3 billion dollars to FedEx. I
Wow.
mean, these opportunities, I'm like, just go in. It's a few $100s. You're gonna spend maybe $100, $200 at the club next weekend. Just spend it on meeting the guy who sold his company for $2 to $3 billion. And so I recommend checking out the Intro app. I'm probably their biggest customer at this point. I have like 15 set up already, or I've already done. I just you got to go in and then storytell. I leave with that story. I say, hey, our story is probably going to be a movie one day, but this is what we went through in order to get to where we are. And we know that there are millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of other businesses that are going through the same thing. And our product was built for those kinds of DNAs that truly need help.
Absolutely, man. And the fact that you said you betting on yourself, and I tell everybody all the time. Like I even had this a pitch on this like internally the other day. Relationships are currency, right? Relationships are currency. That's the key to life, man. And I mean, what I would love to know too, man. Are you documenting all of this stuff? Like, are you actually? You said the movie.
Great question. I mean, it's all on my calendar. It's in my head, and I've thought about it. I just wrote a chapter in a book by Paul Fink, another mastermind founder, and it has actually started getting me thinking about these things, because this can also be great content for ads, great content for marketing, because when the other person on the other end that you're about to pay to use their service knows what it's like to be in your shoes, even though I wear a size 9 shoe and you might wear a size 14 shoe. It's you're taken care of. So I've been thinking about it.
I would highly recommend it, brother, because like I said, for those listening and watching, right? So I also reached out to Arjun because I saw his ad. Ever since me and him clicked on it, it's been retargeting me all over social. And I'm like, I saw his pitch. He was pitching to investors, right? And it was just a crazy sick story. And it made me reach out to Arjun. I'm like, man, this is fire, brother. So storytelling is a big key. And I love what you're doing on that aspect. But like, think about the Kanye documentary. Think about those two pieces of content. It only could be more things to do, right? When you're going into these pitches, right? And to have that, you can sell that as well, right? You can have that content. Now you're selling it for $15 for small business owners that are saying, hey, how do I get into these rooms with the owners of Kinko's and all these others? And that's a spin-off business. So you should invest in the content. It is the king. I know you know this, but
well, we've been thinking about, so these masterminds are funny because they're all teaching about, and all of them are real estate, coaching, podcasting, MLM, direct selling, a couple of NFT community builders as well, and they're coaches. And I'm like, as a tech company, I'm like, how do we get in your business? And
Yep.
because you're our customers, and we can do coaching as well. What we end up doing is every week on Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we do group masterminds.
Okay.
So, the Arjuns, the Jarrets of the world can come in and say, hey, need some help with paid ads, need some advice on building a funnel. We built our funnels for like $500, and we've done like $750,000 off of them so far. It's like little things like that. Just, if you can handhold the person, then you can upsell them on a consulting gig or another gig, right? And I don't see any of our competitors, any of other tech companies doing the services side really well as a SaaS company. And so I'm like learning from our customers how they do their business, because we're trying to do similar things and expand so we can help more of our customers. And it's just about nurturing that, just
That's it.
keeping up with it.
Selling a product is one thing, but helping them execute and get their goals accomplished
Yeah.
with your product is a
Yeah.
totally different thing.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say, and if you really want to hit this home, and you really want to build a great business for the next 5 years, 10 years, or the next century, bring your customers into the business itself. And what I mean is not just as a subscriber, not as just a client or a customer. What we've been able to do, so we just closed our fourth equity crowdfunding campaign, and we raised all in between the four campaigns. We raised about 1.1, $1.2 million, and guess what? Majority of that came from complete strangers, our customer base, and most campaigns end up raising about maybe like 50K. We actually end up raising about 1.2, $1.1 million, and it's incredible because the numbers are as follows. Our average cart is $170. The CAC, cost of acquisition, is for the customer is about $100. So we make about $70 for the year on average. Some customers pay more, and then our LTV is $650 for how long we think the customer will stick with us, and then our average investor that might put in some capital, again on average, is about $315. So if you take the 650 plus the 300 change, it's about $1,000, and you look at the CAC, it's about $100. You get a 10-to-1 ratio approximately, which is unheard of in SaaS. And we also do mostly yearly contracts, which means majority of our customers tend to stay for the whole year. It's just a different way of building a community. Plus, they get shares in the company with the equity crowd fund. They can build with us. We have a community called Content Masters, where they actually tell us, hey, I love this. Hey, don't like this at all. Please take it away. Or, here's my opinion on this. And it's every single day I go in there in video format. I say, hey, Jared, thanks so much for that opinion. Hey, Jared, I really appreciate that. I'm so sorry that happened to you. We'll take care of it. And that's just how you build a community.
That's insane. I wish I had the mic right now. I didn't set it up. Drop the mic, brother. That's brilliant. And I don't know. I know it, and I'm excited about it because obviously I get it. Like your cost per acquisition, I come from the marketing stuff. I totally get that. That's why I feel like that's the problem. You hit the head on the nail in terms of what are the problems with SaaS, right? One problem is it's too much boring marketing, not enough personalization, too much generalizations in terms of how we do marketing, and no creativity, right? I call it boring to boring, right? So that's where a lot of brands are missing the mark, but they're also not just creating community. They're just selling a product, right? So it's one thing, like I said earlier, one thing to sell the product, but to help them execute it on things outside of the product to really help them be more effective and efficient, that's the ones that are going to come back. And like you said, for what you're doing and allowing your customers to actually invest in early, to actually see the journey and see the growth. And then when it becomes the Google or the Apple, right? We're going to speak that into existence. They get to see that, right? And that's an incredible story. That's what goes back to even why you should document all this stuff back too, because that's amazing, right? You need to be documenting this, brother, because that's you are going to blow up, right? So when you do, man, representation matters, right? There are people like you that think this can't happen, right? Same thing with me. That's why I feel. That's why I always with the hat, the hoodies, right? Because I want to show people that it can happen.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's it, Arjun, and that's it, man. So that's why it matters, brother. So I know I'm looking forward to your journey, brother. I would love to know, man, what are you excited for, man? What do you get excited about? Like, what's next for you? What is like the end game? Or what does success look like?
My thing is, I'm a futurist. I was just talking to an angel investor earlier today, and she was like, "Oh my God, you guys are doing so much, and you're growing so fast, and you're doing things that people haven't even thought about." But smart speakers, for example, Alexa devices, broadcasting to them, as easily as scheduling a Facebook post, or augmented reality. We realize that most of our customers are at home, or they're women-led businesses, between the ages of 30 and 60. we need to make them look way bigger than they are against their competitors. So we actually build an iPhone, Android, augmented reality app that tacks into the Hello Woofy app, and you can actually bring your clients in just like a Zoom call, and you can actually show them in AR your art gallery of content on the left side, the timeline, which is we call it the calendar, on the right side, and you can actually drag the post from the library directly to the calendar and schedule it on any point on the timeline. And your client can be like, yep, I like this post here, I like this post here, I don't like this post here, long press it, move it away. And you can do this in augmented reality, and the customer can be 5,000 miles away, 2 million miles away. And so we're starting to think about what does the future of scheduling social media content, blogging, smart speakers, newsletters, Google web stories look like from a collaboration perspective, because it's a hybrid of in-person and digital, which is very important post-pandemic. And so we have to live in a world and build tools that help not only the bigger companies, but also the smallest of small companies. And so that's what I'm excited about. Again, no guarantees. Future projections are not guaranteed. I have to say that because of how we raise our capital. But I'd love to see my customers at the podium. I'd love to see my investors at the podium and my dad at the podium. And when I say that, at the NASDAQ podium, and the ticker symbol being WOFY. And I would love the Hootsuite team to be there as well. Ryan, you should be there. You made this collaboration happen. Again, shout out to Ryan Holmes, the founder of Hootsuite. But that would be the goal.
Can I come? Can I come? I want to be there. Come on, brother. I want to be there.
Everyone's welcome. The whole Hootsuite.
I'm joking. But I know it's gonna happen, man. But let's talk about, if you don't mind, man. Let's talk about your family, man. Like the inspiration. You said you would have your dad there, right? I would love to, tell us about your upbringing, brother. Like, let's talk about that a little bit, and what kind of part they played in your life into who you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my mom, who unfortunately did pass away a few years ago. I think thinking back, I'm definitely turning into her. My insane need for everything to be clean, my taste in music, vinyl, 80s 50s music, sense in design and aesthetics. Learned a lot from her, even though we kind of butted heads towards the end, and we weren't as close. Definitely learned a lot from her, and she was an entrepreneur as well. She ran a skincare company at one point. Wow. But so she would be one of those people. I would say the dean of the university I went to. Boy, did he took me under his wings and taught me about bureaucracy, navigating, negotiating. I mean, he's like a second dad. So that's Dean Baronico, Jess Baronico, right there. And a couple other mentors. I mean, a lot of the investors that are on our website, they took a meeting. I met them randomly at an event, or they love my persistence. They may not have thought about where we were going from a tech perspective, but they knew that the founder and the team would make it somehow. And it's a shout out to pretty much everyone on our About Us page, and 3,000 investors. We have 3,000 people who've invested in our company, $100, $100,000, and they've been very supportive throughout the whole journey. So I draw a lot of inspiration from them.
That's amazing, brother. And I would love to share my story. Before we do, brother, can you let people know who's listening who may be interested in investing? What does the process look like?
So unfortunately, we just closed our round on Saturday, and we're going to look into if we want to do another equity crowdfund later this year. But if you are considering investing, feel free to reach out to us. We have an investor relations section, and if you're accredited, you can reach out to us. That would be great, because we are growing fast. We are looking for strategic partners, channel partners, actually, and in real estate, podcasting, coaching, MLM, direct selling, you name it. NFTs as well. So we're looking for feedback. I mean, we're looking for feedback. We're hungry for feedback right now. How can we make this better?
That's amazing. That's amazing, brother. And I do want to touch on NFTs before we go off, but I do want to let you know a little bit about myself too, brother. Like you said, how your parents were inspiration for yourself, right? Yeah. For me, my mom was a teacher, assistant principal for 20 something years. My dad is where I get my hustle from. He worked 2 jobs for 26 years, from 7 in the morning to 11 at night, to put me and my brothers and sisters to Catholic school. You know what I mean? It's because of that education that I'm here now. I messed up in high school. I was doing wild stuff, and had my kid, and I had to figure it out. But that's where I get that hustle. That's where I get that drive from. And like you said, seeing them see the drive and see all this, my family's proud now, man. They're seeing what I'm doing. I'm talking to people like yourself, other CEOs. I'm rising in the ranks or whatever you call it or whatever it is, man. But I just feel like I'm making an impact on people, and that's what I care about. So that's where I get that drive and hunger from, brother. And let's talk about NFTs because it intrigues the hell out of me. Intrigues the hell out of me, brother, because we were talking about this. I had Walter Gear on a couple weeks back. He's actually one of the he's social influencer of the year from Adweek. He's a really good dude. I keep you in touch. He's a great dude. But we were talking about what is the value of a moment and how you determine the value of a moment and really what are NFTs, right? Right now it's a wild, wild west, right? There's no regulation. I'm sure it's going to be like that in a short time when it comes really mainstream. But what is the opportunity and what are some of the downsides from your perspective?
So I can't speak too much on the NFT side from a tech perspective, or because we raise capital publicly and it's a gray zone. I'm going to refrain from commenting too much about it, other than the fact that it is another example of history repeating itself, right? If you take a look at crypto or blockchain or NFTs overall on a macro level, it's history repeating itself in that it is another form of currency transaction, exchange of value, exchange of goods and services, and it's so fascinating. I love, again, I'm a futurist. I love Star Trek, and if you take a look, there's a lot of papers and a lot of research on how Gene Roddenberry, her vision, the vision that was put together, is so interesting because there is a global unified entity. It's called Starfleet, and the entire planet is unified, and it requires a unified currency, a unified STEM focused an education system, a unified planet, which means philosophies and mindsets have to align and not have situations that we're seeing right now in Europe where people are just not thinking about the bigger picture, but they're thinking about egos and whatnot. Star Trek is very fascinating because we're heading in that direction, both technologically. I think there was a study done that was like half or 75% of the things that were talked about, depicted in Star Trek, are either in laboratories or already developed, including teleportation. If you look into quantum leaping and teleportation, we have been able to entangle molecules and whatnot. It's very fascinating what's happening there, and real-time communication from any side of the universe. So it's little things like that that I feel like NFTs are just pushing civilization forward. I always like to say, I know my competitors don't really think about it this way, and I talk to my competitors all the time just as founders, but I always encourage them, even though we're a competitor, to think civilization forward thinking approaches. Like in our case, we didn't want to just do social. I was like, how do we push small businesses forward? So we did Google Web Stories, we did blogging, we did smart speakers, because they're probably going to be about 500 million speakers by the end of the year, Alexa devices. I was like, how do we take civilization and push it forward? And we may not have the biggest impact, because if you take a look at the Kharshkov scale, which talks about type 1, type 2, type 3 civilizations, one is a civilization that harnesses the planet's energy, one is the solar system's energy, one is the galactic core or the galaxy. We're really nerding out about this now. But I want to see how I can make a dent in the universe to get our civilization from 0 to 1, because we're at 0. And we're hoping that Hello Woofy does that in some small effort. But NFTs is just an example of that truer, bigger vision, which is a unified planet. And I think that's where we're heading.
Brother, that was amazing, brother. And you're Elon Musk thinking, right? Like you're that mind frame. But when I see that, I say it as a compliment, right? Because like you're most business owners I speak with a lot of business owners, I speak with a lot of CEOs and my good friends, but the way you're thinking is on a different level, right? It's different from business and monetary and just revenue and things like that, right? Because you're like, if I change the world, the money's going to come, the revenue is going to take care of itself, and the way you're thinking is incredible, man. So I really can't wait to see what you do, brother. And just last question for me, man. You said you're cool with your competitors. What are those conversations like? Is there like little catty stuff to like try to get a one up on each other? Like
no. I mean, I text Ryan from time to time. I'm like, hey Ryan, here's another entrepreneur you supported, and he wants to say a quick shout out. So I have Ryan Holmes's cell number. I just text him and say, hey, here's a quick selfie with this guy. Or I was actually at Social Media Marketing World, and one of our smaller competitors, they were the lead sponsor, and I just said, hey, Emmerich, he's the founder of Agora Pulse, let's just have a conversation on the side. And he gave me mentorship, he gave me advice. He's like, just founder, this is what you should look out for, and these are the things that you should consider. And he's just a great human being. I've actually spoken to Joel, who's the founder of Buffer, years ago at a random coffee shop, because I was introduced to him by one of my previous investors, Chris Ye, who's actually co-authored a book with Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. Small world all around,
Wow.
right? And so Joel and I are just sitting in the back of a coffee shop. There's literally no one in there except for maybe like one other person, and I'm telling him about my previous company, and he turns out to, obviously be the founder of Buffer. I haven't met Justin yet at Sprout Social. I hear he's a very tough cookie, but he's brought that company pretty far along publicly, and that's a lot of inspiration for our category collectively as an industry, right? And of course Laura I met at a mastermind conference of Meet Edgar and whatnot. So there you go. You got to go all in, and you got to know your neighbors. You got to know, and it doesn't have to be competitive. For crying out loud, go work with them, collaborate with them, co-create with them. This logo right here, this collaboration right here, is an example of what that can look like.
That's it. That's it, brother. And I love it. And thank you. And shout out to everybody who's listening. Shout out to Britta. Much love as always. Shout out to Kamala. Shout out to everybody who tuned in. This was an amazing conversation. I learned a lot from you, man. Your inspiration. I know everybody else who's listening and watching this, they're like, yo, man, I'm rooting for you, brother. So it was just amazing to finally meet you again, brother. I'm glad we met at SMW. This is what relationships look like. Yeah. This is what happens when you just collaborate with people, and good things like this happen, man, and good content. So I appreciate you guys. Next week, we've got Quentin Michael Allums, and he's a good dude, good brother. He's actually, little story, he's actually the one who gave me the confidence to wear the hat and the hoodie. I used to see him on LinkedIn every single day with the hats on, and he was just going, I'm like, man, he's different, man. And I'm sitting there with my little polo button up on LinkedIn. I'm like this. And then he gave me the confidence. So I'm going to have him, man. I'm meeting him for the first time. I'm looking forward to it. But Arjun, thank you again. I can't wait to see what you do in this space. And man, we're going to catch up, man. Thank you for everybody watching. Thank you for another episode of More Than a Title. Love you guys, and see you guys next week.
All right, take care.